Hi, fourth graders. Mrs. Semick here, and we are moving on to lesson 7 of our nonfiction study. And today we're going to take a look at our author's purpose. And I have a great book here of Young Pele, Soccer's First Star. Now, as we already know, my remote learners, as I like to call my Zoomies, please always join us during our reading block so we can help complete your work alongside of our face-to-face learners as well. We, of course, know that this unit, we're going to continue to work on reading and understanding a variety of nonfiction texts. Now, let's just take a look here, okay? Yesterday, if you remember from our lesson, we were being word detectives. We were going to treat words, like a word detective. We were trying to break those words down. We looked at word parts. We used our text feature as far as our glossary goes. We even used context clues to try to figure out the meaning of these unfamiliar words. Now, today we're going to focus here on author's purpose, because one of the most important questions readers of nonfiction must ask themselves is, why did the author write this? Or what was my author's purpose? When readers of nonfiction can identify the author's purpose for writing a text, they're better able to analyze the content and make inferences. Some writers may write nonfiction to entertain here, that we can see right here in the middle. And they want to entertain their readers. Maybe they want to make them laugh or smile or feel positive about a particular topic. You know, sometimes writers may write their nonfiction to persuade over here their readers, and they're trying to make them feel a certain way about a topic. And still other times, as we can see over here, that writers may develop their text with the intent to inform or teach the readers about an idea. Now, this is important, because thinking about why writers write their nonfiction texts can help us understand different perspectives and point of views of various topics and subjects. Because a writer's point of view is the way he or she may feel about a particular topic, similar to kind of like their opinion. It can be positive, it could be negative, but it usually comes through in a way that he or she writes about the topic. Now, whenever we search for the author's point of view or purpose, it's so important that we use specific information from the text to support that. We're not basing it off our opinion. We're looking at our author's perspective. So we got to pull from our text evidence. So as I mentioned before, today we're going to read Young Pele, Soccer's First Star, and see if we can figure out the author's purpose for writing the text, and also maybe a little bit about our author's point of view about how they feel about Young Pele. Now, I'm going to stop at certain pages and we're going to kind of try to figure this out together and what we think our author's purpose is during that point of view, and then also what information led that to me. Okay? All right. So, friends, I'm opening my book here, Young Pele, Soccer's First Star, and let's get started. In a tiny schoolhouse at the edge of a road in Bairro, Brazil, sat a boy with just a hint of a smile on his face. He stared straight ahead at the chalkboard as his teacher spoke, but his mind was miles away. Though he was the smallest in his class, 8-year-old Edson sat tall at his desk, and while others memorized letters, Edson memorized scores from last night's soccer match. While others practiced adding and subtracting, Edson practiced kicking an imaginary soccer ball. And while others heard the teacher calling out numbers and words, Edson heard an announcer calling a game. With just seconds left, Edson takes the ball, past one defender and then another. Now he's all alone, only the goalie between him and the goal. Edson, 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 the fans shout. But Edson stays focused. He bears down, he drives a kick to the right. The ball hits the goalpost, spins back, and flies through the goalie's hands, straight into... And they kind of leave us hanging. So as I pause here and we're looking at Young Pele, what do you feel, friends, is our author's purpose in this introduction on how they introduce Pele in this story? Do you think it was kind of entertaining, exciting? Were they trying to convince us to something? Or were they trying to inform us here? What do you feel like the author's purpose is? Let's see what I have down here. I definitely think it was pretty entertaining. It kind of had me on the edge of my seat, right? And how can I make that feeling? Remember that last part I read here? When the announcer was calling the game with just seconds left and the crowd was shouting, Pele, Pele, or Edson, Edson, it was kind of exciting to hear that part. So I think that was a very entertaining beginning to our story. Now, friends, let's keep going as we get into young Pele here further in the story. Edson do Nascimento. How many times must I call you? His teacher leaned in closer. Now you'll have to learn the hard way. Move! Edson walked past his classmates' desk, past their sneakers, and whispers to a corner where he knelt and waited. The final school bell would ring soon, and he would go home and practice. In Edson's backyard, a torn, dirty net hung in the shade of a mango tree. A group of boys huddled there, struggling to find a team name. Suggestions were made and shot down, but then one name was shouted out, and everyone knew it was perfect. September 7th, it would be, after Brazil's National Day of Independence. Each afternoon, the team practiced in Edson's backyard or along potholed roads and dirt-packed fields, kicking up clouds of dust so thick the players could barely see the ball. As daylight faded, mothers' voices called boys home one by one. Serginho, Nilo, Shadi, Lucio, Dino, Valdo, Edson. See you tomorrow, Edson would shout as he grabbed his ball. A sack stuffed with rags, rolled up and tied with string, and then he headed home, tired but happy. Edson lived with his parents, Don Dinho and Donna Celesta, his grandma, and his younger brother and sister. Don Dinho had once been a fine soccer player, but a knee injury had destroyed his dream of playing for a pro team. After supper and into the night, he and Edson would listen to the matches on the radio, straining to hear the announcers through the static. Going up, across to, beautiful kick, goal! Donna Celeste stayed away, fussing about the two of them wasting their time. When Edson finally went to bed, he closed his eyes and then fast forward to all the plays he had tried and practiced the next day. If I pass to Nilo, and then fake left to Shada, and then Nilo can kick a high pass back to me, and I'd head to the goal. Too late, he'd fall asleep, still clutching his ball of sock and string. On the way to school every morning, Edson liked to kick one rock, and then another, and then he was kicking rocks from side to side, dribbling around people's feet and into potholes. Score! And when the morning bell rang, his thoughts were so focused on perfecting his plays that he rarely even heard it. School only got worse. Edson's teachers dreamed up punishments they thought would make him pay attention. For talking in class, his mouth was stuffed with paper. For fooling around at his desk, he was made to kneel on beans. And although his parents warned him to behave and punished him when he didn't, Edson soon decided it was easier to skip school altogether and play soccer. Around town, September 7 became known as Shoeless Ones, a pretty good team of boys who kicked around a ball of rags and were too poor to afford shoes. What about uniforms? Zé Porto, a defender of the team, wondered one day. Yeah, and shoes too, everyone agreed, thinking maybe a new look would change their image. The boys put their heads together and came up with a plan, and they would enter contests, shine shoes, sell peanuts, and soon they earned enough to buy shirts, socks, and shorts made of flour sacks. But they still didn't have enough for shoes. For Edson and his team, playing the game was all that mattered, and they challenged everyone to take them on, even the locals who streamed out of the factory at the end of their shifts and stopped to watch the boys practice. It wasn't long before older players who had once turned Edson and his friends down were now playing against them. And barefoot, the shoeless ones were winning. It started one day during practice. Someone called him Pele, and then someone else, until the entire team was doing it. And at first, Edson thought that they were calling him the name of legendary soccer star Bailey. He didn't like it. But after weeks of hearing Pele, Edson weakened. Maybe a nickname was a good idea, something fans and announcers could shout out. So Edson Arantes de Nascimento was too long. And anyways, all the best soccer players had nicknames. Why not Pele? Whatever it meant. The Shoeless Ones had been together for nearly 4 years when Senor Nicola Avilon Jr., the town's mayor, announced he was sponsoring a young soccer tournament for neighborhood teams who had uniforms and soccer shoes. And now they needed shoes or they couldn't compete. Zelente, a struggling salesman and father of 3 of the players, offered his help and the team gratefully accepted. Not only did he find them shoes, he agreed to be their new coach. If you train properly and follow my orders, Zelente instructed, you can win this tournament. And so almost every night the shoeless ones disappeared and the new team was born with a new coach and a new name, Little America. Using his sales skills, Zelente got hold of a collection of badly worn soccer shoes, donations from a local team. He shouted in their native Portuguese as the boy dived for the new shoes. The foot of a poor man doesn't have a size. Now, instead of focusing on their feet, the team could concentrate on the game, though playing with shoes did take some getting used to. Between regular practices, 12-year-old Pele and his teammates worked on drills. Zelente designed leaping, dribbling, heading, trapping, dribbling again, so much, so fast they could do them without even thinking. Pele became the unofficial captain because he owned the ball. Now listen closely, friends, as we get into this next page. And he remained the captain because of all the knowledge he had from talking soccer, listening to soccer, watching and playing soccer with his father. Edson, you only know how to use your right foot, Dandijo would warn. A good player uses each foot equally. And remember, middle of the forehead, eyes open, mouth shut. That's it, he'd shout as Pele headed the ball. All right, now back to the feet. Left foot, right foot, like this. That's better. Again. And when he returned, Donna Celeste was always waiting in the doorway, shaking her head. Dandijo don't come complaining to me when he wants to be a soccer player instead of a doctor. But Dandijo would simply laugh. Celeste, if he doesn't learn to use his left foot, you have nothing to worry about. So in this section, we go from this wonderful, entertaining story here, and it goes into a lot more information about the idea of what it takes to be a great soccer player. What do you think the author's purpose in this part of the story is? Is it to simply continue entertaining us? Is it to convince us and persuade us, or was it to inform us and teach us more about the sport? I would definitely say it's to inform us. And how do I know? Because in this part of the story, they're talking more about how, Pele has to be taught to be a good player using both of his feet. And, he's taking in all these different soccer tips. All right, let's finish our story of Pele and see what our author then gives their opinion towards the end. Pele's skills were growing faster than his body, but now his teammates were heads taller than Pele, and it was Pele who could play center forward, defense, even goalie. Other teams noticed quickly that he dribbled, always with an eye for a pass. Goal! Fans would shout when Pele scored, usually in a tight corner of the goal or after a quick fake. And in a game where one goal is often all that scored, Pele could score 3 alone. Other teams with better uniforms, coaches, and fields tried to convince him to play for them, but Pele stayed loyal to Little America. When Little America's turn came to play in the youth soccer tournament, the team knew it had one advantage over all the others. Its players could work together. On the day of their game, the athletic club stadium was packed with 5,000 people, standing on lush green grass. Pele forgot all about his father watching in the stands and his mother worrying at home over his future. Left foot, right foot, he said to himself over and over again. And by the time the whistle blew, he was focused only on the goal. The first goal was scored by the opposing team, but Little America stayed cool, playing as one, reading each other's signals as the team spoke its own secret language and scored. Again, each team scored, and then the Little America caught fire, driving downfield with incredible speed. One quick pass from the right, and with seconds left, Pele takes the ball, past one defender, and then another, and now he's all alone, only the goalie between him and the goal. Pele, 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 the fans shout, and Pele stays focused. He bears down. He drives a kick to the right, and the ball hits the goalpost, spins back, and flies through the goalie's hands, straight into the goal. Pele, Pele, the crowd chanted. And Edson realized for the first time since he'd heard it that the name Pele, when they were echoing in harmony throughout a stadium, it sounded like music. As he and his father headed home, Pele was followed by the sound of his fans shouting, "Congratulations!" And when they saw Donna Celeste poised in their doorway, shaking her head, his steps slowed. And then his mother moved toward him, pulled him to her and hugged him. "Congratulations, my son," she whispered. Beautiful end to the story. Now, the author has included a note at the very end, and I want you to listen carefully here as the author gives their viewpoint at the end. Born on October 23, 1940, Pele would grow up to become the greatest player of soccer, or football as it's called in countries outside of the United States, the world's ever known. The origin of the name Pele is unknown. Some believe it derives from the word pé, which means foot in Portuguese, which is often yelled in frustration by players when the soccer ball is mistakenly touched by the hand. Still, others believe the name was given as a tribute to the soccer star Pelé. Over the course of his career, Pele had nicknames. In Italy, they called him Ire, the King. In France, La Tulipa Noire, the Black Tulip. And in Brazil, Perola Negra, the Black Pearl. In 1958, at 17 years old, he was the youngest player in history to compete in a World Cup championship, and he led his team to victory over Sweden and Brazil's first World Cup. At 21, he led his team to another World Cup championship, and he did it again at 29. In all, he played 1,363 games, scoring an incredible 1,281 goals. Brazil's famous number 10 brought grace and excitement, speed and acrobatics to the likes of which had never been seen, before or since, to the soccer field. I feel the author's giving us their opinion at this point. They're trying to, in a way, convince us that this is one of the world's best soccer players in history. So is it to entertain, persuade, or inform? I would definitely feel at this point that author's note is to persuade us, to convince us this is truly one of the best soccer players in history. And they go on to give us lots of different facts here about his history, and even includes that opinion statement, the likes of which have never been seen on the soccer field here. So I love this story because it does give us an idea of how you can get an author's purpose in 3 separate ways in one book all together here. All right, so let me go ahead and finish up with our lesson for today. Please remember that what's so amazing about the story is that they're telling it as the soccer star, and they chose to write it as a biography, okay? They give us all kinds of different clues here about Pele, and even give their viewpoint here. So maybe you agree, maybe you think that he truly was one of soccer's best stars, or maybe you have someone else in mind. You may disagree with the author's point of view. With today's lesson here, as readers of nonfiction, knowing the author's purpose and the author's point of view about his or her topic, it gives us a deeper insight into the topic, and it also helps us with our understanding. Remember that when we identify the author's purpose, we have to support it with evidence. We can't just come up with it. We have to have evidence from the text. So I always like to tell my students, when I'm trying to figure out author's purpose, think pie. Think of pie, because it's either the author's purpose could be to persuade, convince us, inform us, or teach us, or simply to entertain us, make us smile. For your exit slip today, friends, face-to-face, and also my Zoomies here, I want you to go ahead and you're going to log into your Scholastic News for this week. I want you to pick an article. I want you to tell me what you think the author's purpose is and fill in that Google form, or you're going to be working out in your reading binder if you're face-to-face today. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Until next time.